All right, so my name is Andy Goodliff. I am Associate Dean for Admissions, Recruitment, and Fellowships in the Graduate School of the University of Alabama. I'm also a professor in Department of Geological Sciences. I've been at UA for 21 years now, 12 years in my current position. Uh, I got my PhD from the University of Hawaii many, many years ago. And my particular research interest is actually acoustic geophysics. I do subsurface imaging, largely aimed at sort of petroleum industry, that sort of thing. Shri, I think you're next.
Yeah, thank you, Andy. My name is Shri Aleti. It's easy to remember. In Apple you have Siri, so take an eye out of it. Shri, I'm a team player. I'm also a professor in civil engineering. Um, I oversee graduate admissions at the civil engineering department. I've been with the University of Alabama for 12 years. Um, I did my PhD from Iowa State University in Iowa. Then I moved to University of Alabama to take my faculty position. My research area is large scale testing, where we build large concrete structures and break them into pieces and then understand how things fail. Um, Again, welcome to this event.
All right, next we have Sim.
Hello, I'm Sim. I've been a faculty member over in communication studies for the past 12 years, but I've been at the University of Alabama for around 20 years now because I did my undergraduate work and then both my degrees here as well. Currently, I am the distance learning facilitator for our online master's degree. And my research areas of interest are narratives of identity, particularly around healthcare, sports, and politics.
All right, last but not least, Josh.
So, welcome everyone. My name is Josh Pierce, and I am the new guy. I've only been here for 8 years. Fortunate to have been here for 8 years. I got my PhD at Michigan State University. I am the associate chair of finance here. I'm the banking chair, and I'm a finance professor. My work is a lot on executive labor markets. If you've heard of the C-suite at firms, I look at kind of what entices executives to jump ship, work for other companies. How does the board decide how to pay and when to fire executives, and questions such as those.
Okay, excellent. All right, so as Caitlin mentioned, this session is all about connecting with faculty. But I wanted to really state that, that connection with faculty is sort of part of the application process for many programs. And I really want to sort of go through what is the purpose of the application, because we have many students asking us, okay, what's the most important part of an application? The reality is all of these things are part of that, as Dr. Pierce was saying earlier, part of this jigsaw puzzle that we're putting together to get a picture of the student. So, for example, our letters of recommendation might look at your work ethic. They might look at your skills, how you work in a team, something like that. The statement of purpose is going to tell us a little about your educational foundations. We're going to learn about your career goals and what your passions are in the particular field and why you want to come to the University of Alabama. Your transcripts are going to tell us directly about your academic performance, how you've done in key classes, and different programs might value different classes in different ways. A program may see a particular class as an indicator for how well you might do in the graduate program. And then things like writing samples, we want to look at how well you formulate ideas and solutions. And these are just some examples of some of the things we might be looking at. And different programs are going to piece this puzzle together differently. They might put different weights on the different parts of the application. But we get an awful lot of applications. And really when you're connecting with faculty, this is one of the ways that you can really have your application stand out. So it might be that Dr. Aledi has 1,000 applications in a given semester, and that's not unusual for his program. So that's a lot of applications to wade through. But if you can connect with faculty in a very meaningful way, writing that initial cold email in such a way that it piques the interest of a faculty member, that's when that faculty member will go to Dr. Aledi and say, hey, I want to look at that application in more detail. This person sounds like a really good prospect. So really the question we want to answer in this session is, how does an applicant write an email that's going to get our attention, that's going to draw our attention to your excellent application materials, so that we can pick you out as one of those 1 in 1,000 applications. So with that, I want to stop sharing, and we're going to go into the panel discussion. So my first question for our wonderful panel of experts here is, what do you think makes a cold email from a student stand out to you in a positive way? What is it about one of these emails a student might send you that really would pique your interest?
Okay, I will go first. My last name is 2 A's, so I always get to go first. So I think to just to say, at least when I'm looking at the cold emails from students, I would definitely love to see an email which is short. When it says short, not 2 lines, but probably 6 lines or 7 lines, and to the point, saying that, hey, what you're looking at, what is your background? So a line or 2 about your background, what you're trying to do at University of Alabama, why you are reaching out to me, and if you're looking at a financial support, I would like to even mention that potentially you might be interested in financial support. So I think that's something I always look into it when the email comes. And I also notice, the one which will get my attention right away is, people not talking about how my work is wonderful, rather than telling me that, hey, I looked into this paper and I came across this paper or your work, and this is something which kind of reminded me something in my classroom I learned in one of the class, or it could have helped. So I think that the connection between what their background to what they're seeing will definitely get my interest, that, okay, this prospect is trying to tie their knowledge and experience to my work. That shows that they have interest in what I'm trying to do, and then that will definitely make me look into further into that email and then the prospect and reaching out to them. I would also encourage the students to definitely attach, even if it's the first cold email. I would like to see a short resume. If not, attach a short resume. That's my personal opinion, because I can look into more details into what you have done. If I like what you see in those 6 lines, then that can continue the communication with the student.
Sim or Josh?
I'll jump in. I'd like to echo what you said, in that, like, I think a cold email that has some sort of connection thought out from the sender is really important. Why did you pick me to send an email to me? Are you interested in the same things I'm interested in? Do you think that I have particular answers to questions you're looking for? Did you just find my name and in the directory? And however you can kind of make the connection and say, this is why you're getting this email, means that I can decide, oh yes, this is I can answer these questions, I can fill this role, or I can send just somebody who can. Where I don't want to be is in that gray space in between, where I don't know who can answer your question because I don't know what it is, or why you picked this out to inquire about graduate school.
I'll share briefly. I agree with both of the what the gentleman said on what to do. I would go with a more laser focused approach rather than the scatter approach, where I get a lot of emails And in the email are maybe 11 or 12 questions. Do you offer free admission? Will you waive this math class? Do I have to take a speaking test? When can I do it? Is a amalgamation of a data dump, essentially, and I get a lot of those. I would encourage you to stand out from folks, and some of those follow-up questions, first of all, kind of why do you need all the waivers? Why do you have a deficient background? Is really going to jump out at someone. So I'd kind of highlight what you want to get out of the program. That's important for us. Kind of what are your passions, like Andy said, what are your dreams, what can we help support you with? That's exciting. Then to make sure we line up with you, and if we can't, we know folks at Kentucky and South Carolina and Tulane and other American universities, and we'd be happy to put you in touch with them. So we really want to do service by you. And I have the laser approach. This is why you're interested in working with us, not the boilerplate that has been sent to 40 other schools that, we're the best in, something. So I know it's time consuming. I know remember, we've all been there. That's hopefully we've all wrestled with writing these. So I would try to make it laser focused, what you want to get out of it, what you can contribute and what you bring. And again, I would usually some Google searches, some web searches can really hit the nail on the head on if free applications are offered, et cetera, et cetera. Those smaller, low-hanging fruit kind of questions.
Mm-hmm. Shri, I really liked something you said there, because I get a lot of these that, hey, I really admired your paper on blah, 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 blah. It's so fantastic. And I'm like, that was 20 years ago. I wrote that. I can't even remember that paper. But for you, really tying that to what they're doing and just saying, hey, this paper really appealed to me, really linked into the work I've been doing. That was actually, that's a really nice, that was a really nice one. I like that. So I'm going to use that one in the future when talking to folks. What are some things that students might do, this is the whole panel, in an email that will make you less likely to respond?
I'll go first. If it feels like your first piece of research is to email, cold email, that's going to make me less likely to engage it with the depth that you probably need. I think Josh had a really good point that like doing your research first and making this part of the early research, but definitely not the first step is important to get an in-depth response.
So do your homework before you write that email.
So I was going to say I think to just piggyback on what Josh also mentioned, one is instead of going on a spread approach. So I have noticed when we are sending out these emails to multiple people, the first thing, definitely, if people get my name wrong and then it's supposed to go to somebody else, it shows up on my email and at a university wrong, then that is definitely, even if you're a great student, that is a most of the time is kind of a turn off, because as a researcher, we're expecting that people are going to be they're really very up with the fine details. So I think that's something I would be really cautious and encourage people to really read their emails before whom you are sending. And the second thing is, again, even though you're sending an email to me, if you are sending an email to my colleague who's polar opposite about the research we do and say you are interested in their work too, we are all colleagues, we talk. And we, if you really come out to be the top of the person, then we all going to go after the same person and say, well, how come this person is interested in everything every person in the department is doing? So I'm not trying to say that, hey, do not cold email 50, that's up to you. But most of the times, wait for a week. And it's all right to tell. I think, in my opinion, it's all right to tell that, hey, I also reached out to XYZ in your department because these are the 3 areas I'm interested in. So I think that's something I always told my current students who I was able to recruit, because that's how I found out. One of my current students is actually emailed my colleague first, and then during the conversation he recommended to talk to me. So I think that those are the 2 things. I think so wait for a couple of days before you are sending that emails to everyone in the department saying that you're interested in everything too. So.
Josh, any thoughts on this thing? Things that would put you off when you...
Yeah, I think Sim hit on, we have this similar issue with a mass email. Thank you for mentioning that. And hopefully everyone knows that it's not just a specific college where this happens, but across the university. Yes, my colleagues will come down the hall and said, someone's really interested in my research. And I said, same guy's really interested in my research. So, you know, that's usually a negative. So not to kind of continue with this, but I think that to really have an idea of who you're talking to and not just to regurgitate kind of the boilerplate email, if you will, and to really do your homework. I think that's very important.
So you know, we all get a lot of these emails, and you know, I get a lot of these every day, and grad school gets a lot of them in general. I guess for me, one of my things that sort of puts me off is when the first thing in the email is about funding, rather than the background of the student. How do you all feel about that?
Yeah, I'll start here just because I went last, and I'm passionate about this also, Andy. We'd all like money. I wanted money. I would work with the idea that faculty know that you'd be very appreciative of a scholarship, graduate assistantship, TA, fellowship, whatever the verbiage is for funds. We know that, and to lead with that is a little crass, I think, as Andy meant. And again, it puts more of the focus on you don't really want to come here. You will come here if it's for free, though. That's kind of what I'd really rather have an energetic young, not young, old, young, middle-aged woman or man be wanting to work with me. And that's what's fun, or one of my colleagues. And then if there's funding, people will work on a way as best as they can to get that for you.
So I think to just echo Josh's point, definitely, I think asking the first line is hey, do you have funding? Then I want to talk. To me, that's more transactional. So you're not here you're not here to to advance the science or engineering, whatever your field, and then not to gain new knowledge. To me, that just like you're treating this as a job. My strongest personal opinion, I never took a student who thought a graduate education is a job, right? So I think the graduate education is education which sometimes can support you with financially, so you don't need to. It can provide some kind of so that you can go buy things and live, okay, right? I'm not going to say you're going to live like luxuriously about like the real job, but that's where I agree with what Andy mentioned. Starting with the funding is definitely is a turn off, and like as Josh mentioned, also most of the faculty, if not all, know that if we find a right student, that's our job to find you money to complete your work. I do not think there is a single faculty, at least at UA, who is trying to get a free work out of a student, right? We are looking for the good students to come and then advance some of our work, and it's our job to figure out how to support those students to achieve their goals. So.
I can't think of anything new to say. I think y'all covered it really well. Yeah, we're here to try to find you the support that you need. Starting with that doesn't give us the connection point that we need to know why. Why should we be finding your funding? And so start with the why you're interested in coming to UA, working with us, and then we'll work on the how after that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I always tell students, if you're a really good student, we're going to find funding for you. Yeah. How long should these emails be?
Let me go first. I think because I do get a lot of emails. So typically, I think as I mentioned at the beginning, typically I would like to see the first cold email probably 6 to 7 lines. I think to be brief, and then you don't need to tell us that you wrote X number of papers before, because if you want to mention about your credential, that could be nicely put it into a resume, right? So you can just attach that one. So I think it's short, and probably I would say 5 to 6 lines with a focus on what's your background, what you're trying to do, how I fit into what you're trying to do. I think if you can give that, then I'm sure we will follow up with back and forth conversation. Then we definitely faculty will be interested in learning about more about you and your willingness to what type of work you want to do.
I'll chime in quickly. Just I would, and I think most of, not necessarily if I would agree, but I think most of my colleagues would agree and would be in the same boat, that shorter is always better, with the idea of just because it's short and to the point, if you don't get a response in a day, please, I would encourage you, do not follow up immediately with another email. This is what I've learned kind of standard operating practice for a lot of folks. I would wait at least a week before, and that's from me. And again, these other faculty may have differences, but usually that's a good time frame because they're teaching. They might have families. They might be in the middle of writing a book or reviewing a book or traveling for a conference. But usually a week is a pretty good amount of time to say, hey, I've come up for air. You're on our radar. We meet at the end of the month, or at least you'll get some feedback. You're on the radar. Faculty are good at that, right? We want to be doing this. We cannot do this within like a 24-hour kind of follow-up. So I would not take it as negative if it's shorter and you don't hear back right away. I would just take that as, faculty are human. Okay, but
when it comes to length for me, it's really about a balance of the purpose. What do you want to do? If you need a specific answer, obviously that can be pretty short. If you're trying to start a conversation, that doesn't have to be very long either. And that may be ideally what you want to do here. You want to start a conversation with a faculty member to see if you would be a good fit for their program. And so think about it as kind of a supplement to your other materials. And ideally, a conversation that can continue, doesn't have to all come out in the first email.
And I sort of tell you how it works for me. We all get a lot of email. When I come across an email that's really long, like a 3-page email, I'm going to read that one later. And to be perfectly honest, it might get buried in my inbox. So if you can write a short, great, succinct email, that's wonderful. It also tells us that you're good writers, which is a skill that we certainly are looking for. In terms of formality, I mean, I get a lot of these emails that might say, "Dear Prof," for example. What sort of formality do you expect in this email? How formal should you write this?
Let me go first. I mean, so the one thing I do know, I mean, I'm originally from India, so I know the different parts of the country's different parts of the world, they treat the faculty a little different. So what I typically expect is, I don't expect someone calling me doctor. My undergraduate students call me by name. So typically for me and some of my colleagues, as long as you can definitely put Dr. So and so, the fine, or if you can just directly use the name, I'm fine with it. So the formality wise, I'm not really picky on it. I don't want to say that everybody's like that, but that is one thing for me. One thing for me, mostly my emails, I would like them to be professional. So I want to make sure that you don't have spelling mistakes and then typos. Definitely not typos in the names of the people. I think those are the few things I look at it. So the tone of it for me need to be professional is what I'm looking for, rather than how you're going to greet me with my PhD degree or not. So.
Others, because I know this changes a lot by discipline.
Right.
Yeah, it does. I mean, and in the communication studies department, we take it as a something we have to teach our undergraduate students is how do you write an email. And so it's definitely a sticking point for us. I would say start formal, very much lean into professional in tone and format. Um, but if you do get to that conversation, place like we were talking about, you can mirror what the professor is doing, and that's going to be probably your best bet. You don't have to stay super formal. If I'm like, oh, call me Sim, da 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 da, like, and so it's really about starting in a place where you can keep that professionalism and then adjusting to the tone and the format that the other person is using.
I'll just second the idea of I would be formal, and I would use the professor or doctor, etc. I would lean on that. I also encourage people to call me Josh after we've met and we get to know each other and we're doing research. But at times I still will call older faculty than me at other universities professor or doctor, as a sign of respect, and I don't know them. So I'm a so I would default to that.
I'd also
think,
like to add, I think that's a great idea, but I also want to add that you need to be particularly careful when it comes to the gender of the faculty. I know a lot of my colleagues get automatically Mrs. or Miss when it's doctor, and that does not happen as much for me. It doesn't sound like, and so be particularly careful. Start with doctor, and then if they ask you to call them something else, go with that.
Yeah, Sim, I do know many faculty who that is understandably very frustrating for. So I think that initial email sort of defaulting to Dear Dr. Butler, for example. And I know for me, if a student has emailed me, it might be, Dear Dr. Goodliff. When I respond, I'm going to sign it Andy. And that is sort of your signal. I'm basically telling you how you can now respond to me. So again, what was said earlier, start formally, then adjust to what is the norm there. And, just speaking to what Sri was saying, in the STEM fields, we tend to be a little less formal in general, but it's always good to sort of start out formally. Another question we get very commonly is, when should a student start sending these cold emails? Where does this fit into the application cycle? And we've got 3 departments represented here that have quite different application cycles. So start with you, Sri. I mean, if you had someone who wanted to get in fall 2026 to the civil engineering PhD program, are they too late now to start talking? Should they be doing it, if they've done it in the summer, should they be doing it throughout the fall? What's your general guidance?
So I think my typical suggestion will be definitely start in the summer, a year before you're going to start, because if you have if you are a good prospective student and the faculty can think about, hey, this is a student I might be look for forward, and then if you want to hire, we are making some funding decisions probably sometime November, December timeframe. So that's not a bad idea. So I think one of the things I would definitely encourage them, beginning of the fall, just the first 2 weeks, and the beginning of the spring, the 2 weeks, those are really, really busy days, especially with the new semester starting and new teaching, all the students coming in. You typically probably some of the emails will get lost in the volume of the emails you're going to get. So I think the suggestion will be definitely for start in summer. I don't think it's too late because our applications review, typically we start sometime in mid-October for trying to finalize some of the funding, especially on the grants. But then it can go all the way up to February. So depending on, because our grants are coming sporadically, right? It's not on the same date. So as we come, the new avenues will start opening up, and we were looking for new students. But I think I just want to be cognizant about the starting of the semester and the end of the semester. Typically Christmas break, people are spending with family, and then there is holidays. I don't think not every faculty member that's they're recouping for the next semester. So some of those things might slow down responses, but for the next fall, I think they could start doing right now, reaching out to faculty.
Sim, thoughts on this one?
I think that around the time your application is coming through is one of the better times to take advantage of emailing professors, simply because now we have another, a way to kind of supplement your application. And if we hit it off, if I'm very interested in what you've got to say, I can go and look up this stuff, or I can tell colleagues in a way that keeps it at the forefront of their mind. There are parts of the semester that are rough on everybody. They can be different from department to department. Usually the beginning of our semester is not bad, but once we hit October or February, I can't do anything beyond what is right in front of me. And so if it's an option to kind of do it around your application, that's a really good time for me and some of my colleagues, because we can then pass the information along and that they have an immediate reference point. Instead of thinking, who was that person who emailed me way back then? I wonder if they've turned in an application.
So I would echo what they both said, with the caveat that sometimes our department, at least, will take applications on the later side. Especially what I've learned is perceived as late around campus. But in general, I'd echo what both of they said, with the little asterisks that sometimes you may get lucky, if you will, and be able to apply a little later, if you will.
Mm-hmm. And I think to my own case, when I applied to my PhD program, I actually contacted a faculty member very, very late.
Mm-hmm.
I got lucky.
Yeah.
I would generally advise not doing that.
Yeah, me too.
And I do want to, add that, talking to some of my colleagues about this, I mean, I was talking to a colleague in political science who said, no, we don't want to have an email from a student before they've completed their application. And so, there's a whole range here. So do sort of think about, talking to your own professors about, what is the normal thing in your field. All right, next, what seems like a fairly simple question, but it can make a big difference in how quickly you respond to an email. What should the subject line be of the email?
In that first email, I very much want it to be a hint as to what I'm about to open and read. So if you have a question about our program, I would be specific. If you have a question about doing research, say that. Whatever the first purpose is for the email, go ahead and get that in the subject line.
I think I'll echo exactly what Sim was talking about. I would like to tell the subject line to tell me what I'm opening into. So try to get that into subject line. That will definitely make me open and read it quicker.
And if there is any way, at least in my department and at the business school, if you could somehow put the word or hook research in the subject, faculty usually eat that up. That you're interested in research and you want to be a researcher. That's for good or bad, that is where a lot of our placements are.
And I think it's probably a fair conclusion to say that having the subject line as funding or scholarships is not a good choice. So lots of nods.
This is another piece for me where it's going to be different all over campus, and so research is definitely something that we pride ourselves in communication studies. But where we need grad students is really when it comes to teaching, being teaching assistants. So look at the classes that are offered at the undergraduate level. How many of those have staff beside the name? Look at your faculty members, see what their publication rates are. And you can get a feel for what does this department need and how can and is that a good fit for me?
That's a great idea. That's a great idea, Sim. I would also take a look at the university webpage, and you will find a lot of answers or one-offs to your questions, such as fellowships, part-time jobs. The universities usually do a really good job. I'll brag about Alabama having a pretty good web page that it will indicate usually free application week is in February. Usually this is this, and it will give you a pretty good working idea of what kind of fellowships are out there. What do they look like? What do they entail? Are they teaching? Are they research? And I think to show also that you've done some legwork, I think goes a long way with faculty.
Mhm. Absolutely. And it's a very common comment I hear from faculty across the campus that students are emailing and asking things that are easily accessible on the web page. And so we want the questions that go beyond that. You know, are you looking for someone to work in, you know, acoustic geophysics, my field, or something like that, and telling me, you know, giving me some details, something that they can't necessarily find easily on that web page. So in that cold email, you know, it seems pretty clear that should be a short, well-written email. Should not be 3 pages long. It needs to focus on your research interests. And I think, you know, really focusing also on the fit to the particular faculty member. So sort of the next stage, in that first short, well-written email, should a student be proposing to have a Zoom meeting? Should that come later? What are the next steps?
I personally, it is okay for a student to say they're open to be willing to meet for the faculty member instead of telling that, hey, this is the time I want to meet. I have to meet. So I think just telling that they're available if needed, I think that is a good indication that people are willing to work as needed to meet the goals of the whatever the relationship or mentorship they want to set up. Most of the times for me, when I have a prospective student, I always I don't think I ever took anyone without talking to them in person, over Zoom, right? So it could be just 10 or 15 minutes just to see, get the one-on-one, have a face to the name, right? And then so that we can decide in those conversations instead of writing long emails. I'm sure none of us wants to write long emails. So I think that I'm okay with people being available for a meeting, but not demanding a meeting.
Sim or Josh, anything to add there?
Josh, do you want to go first? I saw you click on.
Sure. Just briefly, I think I would echo that. Yeah, I would not suggest a meeting time. Actually, I'd let the faculty member kind of drive the hey, I'm free here and here. They know that you'd like to meet, and hopefully you're free often to talk with them. But I'd kind of let them lead. But Sim?
Yeah, I would encourage you to do what fits for you in this inquiry process. How much information do you need, and is going through the faculty member the best way to get all the information that you need? In some cases, it's going to be, right? And you can see that it's going to be a good fit. You can continue that conversation and build a relationship with that faculty member. If you've got lots of important questions before you begin the application process, you don't want to try to take up the faculty member's time to do that. It's not going to be useful for them. It's not going to be useful for you. So really have a purpose of what do you need from the faculty member? What do you want from the faculty member in the relationship with the faculty member? And then try to balance those needs versus the time that they offer. Josh.
Mhm. Well, I think we're going to bring Caitlin back into the meeting, and we're going to transition to questions from the participants.
Yeah, so someone asked, I've reached out to several faculty members, but some have not responded. Will this affect the review of my application, or should I go ahead and submit my application regardless?
I'm not one of those faculty members, but I totally could be. Yeah, it is going to be somewhat in a cycle, right? Like if I get an email and I read it and I can say, okay, I can respond to this at the end of the week, or I can respond to this next week, because we can do that after this other thing that I've got going on. That may be part of the delay. But it also may be that the faculty member doesn't think you're a great fit and you need to work relationships with other faculty members. It's a little bit of a balance there. I will say, don't be discouraged if you don't hear back immediately. We're giving you all these rules and stuff, but my favorite part is working with students, and particularly grad students. And so that's what we really get excited about. So stick with it. Just know that you may have been one of 600 emails that day.
And I wanted to reiterate that, the student asked, not all have replied. So I'm hoping that when you said that, the student who sent this, that, a good bit of the faculty replied, but maybe, like Dr. Butler said, the reason they didn't reply is because you're probably not a good fit. Maybe you shouldn't be emailing every single faculty member in the department. And only the people who, would be interested in working with you are responding. So the fact that you're getting a response at all is, I think, in my opinion, great news. If you're getting responses from more than, one or two faculty members, that's great news. That should encourage you to definitely apply, but don't expect every single faculty member in the department or even within that area. Because oftentimes, like they said earlier, they talk with each other and they say, hey, here's a student, maybe you should talk. Oh, well, actually, I've already emailed them back. So don't let that discourage you, especially if you had got some responses from other folks.
I want to add, though, I mean, we're all human. We all get a lot of email, and it may be we just missed it. I mean, for me, I have to prioritize responding to emails. I can't necessarily respond to all of them instantly. I'm going to be looking at the subject line. I'm going to be looking at who it's from. And it may be I just miss it. And when I go through my email at the end of the week, I go, oh, okay, I'm so sorry for a slow response. That happens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if no one else had anything to ask, another question that was similar is someone said, in a situation where I don't get a response for about a month and I send a follow-up, but the professor still doesn't answer, what should I do?
Let me take that one. I have some students who emailed me saying that. So I think the two things. One, if I were the student, I will take it to the two Qs. One, that you may not be feeding into that professor's, what the needs are, right? So probably it's time to move on to the next faculty member. And then the second thing is, if you really want to work with that faculty member only, right? I would still tell you to send an email. At some point, they will respond saying, if hey, you don't fit into what I'm looking for. I can at least speak for myself. When I have a really good students who I think can fit into what I expect in a research in a graduate student and to be in my group, I also look at what is, as I mentioned, we all know that we need to support some of the student financially to be here. So there is resources, and if there is unlimited resources, I will take everyone, right? But then we also know that we need to manage the resources as depending on what my needs were at that point. So I might be waiting to just hear back about my funding outcome from a grant. So if you are in the list, I will definitely tell. Most of the times, for me, if I don't respond for 2 months after 3 emails, that means you don't fit into my, what I'm looking for my group. I tend to respond as much as I can, but as Annie mentioned, all of us mentioned, at some point we cannot respond every email, right? But I think that at least that's what I will take it as a cue. But
I would also probably take it as a cue, but it doesn't hurt one more email. I mean, if you send an email and it's been a month, is my understanding, since you've heard from them, a follow-up email isn't going to do any more damage if it's already been a month. Or I don't think it's going to make things that much better if it's been a month. It could be you're waiting on a grant. It could be you missed it. It could be you're not a good fit.
And I
And
want
it could
to talk a little bit about that follow-up, if it's okay.
go ahead.
Craft that follow-up with the understanding that you didn't get a message the first time. And so, I think that's an important part of you looking through the situation and asking the professor, hey, I know you're really busy, or maybe maybe you don't think I'm a very good fit. And that will sometimes lead to a better response than just like, oh, I'm so sorry. I have a huge, I am very unlikely to respond if I get an email that just says, hey, bumping this to the top of your inbox. And I'm like, no, do not do that. And you just put yourself at the bottom again. So make sure that when you follow up, you're taking into account that you haven't heard from this professor, and don't take it personally, but understand that that's a cue as to how busy this person is, what they're waiting on, like grants, and you need to maybe relook at fit.
And I think, the question, should I go ahead and apply again? I mean, it could well be that we just missed the email. If you think you're a really good fit based on what you see on the web pages, go ahead and apply and make it such that your application gets our attention at that point.
And there's a question that continues popping up in the chat for multiple people, and I want to answer this, and also have you guys answer it, but they're asking about, is it required to email faculty before applying to the program?
I'm going to say it's not required to email faculty before applying to the program. It's not a requirement, but I would strongly suggest looking at least what's the program is offering you, and then trying to learn about it is a better approach. But for just as a requirement, if you really wanted to check mark, right, you don't require to really email a faculty member so that you can apply.
I'm going to add that can be discipline specific. Definitely what Sri said, in most cases, it's not required. But I can think of two departments on campus, my own academic department and biological sciences, where absolutely you have to make contact with a faculty member beforehand. And if you haven't done, they will not review your application. And so, this sort of leads on to, another part of this, which is always know who the graduate program director is of the program that you're applying to, because they can tell you what's expected. So Sri will tell you, no, it's not, it's not necessary. But if you email biology, they'd say, absolutely, you've got to do this. But it's the graduate program director who knows what the tradition is in that department.
What do you guys suggest when students are connecting with faculty who are replying but don't necessarily know if they have funding yet, or know for sure they won't have funding, but they have been corresponding with the student?
Unfortunately, that may be a time where you have to kind of hold tight and wait, because most likely you're in the same holding pattern that the graduate director is, and the graduate director may be in a holding pattern from their chairwoman, and their chairwoman may be in a holding. So I just want you to kind of all see that this could be nothing that is negative. I'm not sure if anyone else reads it differently, but I see no reason to be alarmed.
Anyone else wanted to add that?
I'd agree with that.
Yeah,
We're all, as program directors and deans in the graduate school, we're all balancing funding and who we can bring in and who we can't. And to be perfectly honest, as Sri said, we would love to bring in everyone if we had unlimited resources, but we've got to balance, who can we bring in? And it might be you hear at the last moment that you can get in, and don't take that negatively. It may just be we got more funding and we can bring more people in.
So I think, I mean, to just add a and give an example, I got 2 PhD students starting, well, actually 1 master's student and 1 PhD student starting this fall. And they were actually, I got them pretty late in March because suddenly they applied, and then I said, hey, we will go through the review process of our applications, and my funding came through. I knew around sometime in February that my grants were funded, so then it was much easier to do. Then the paperwork came through, and then they were able to be here. So I think even if you don't hear back sometime late in the March, don't feel that, hey, that's the end of the day, that we are not trying. If there is a funding, there are a lot of things changing. So if you are talking to faculty members, keep the conversation going, and I think you should definitely apply and then be in the line when things come in, so you can easily get into into formalizing that process.
And something I want to add is that the funding trickles down. So if somebody who in front of you decides not to come, it's not like the funding goes away. I mean, I like to tell students that when I started at the University of Alabama, I was looking for a speech and debate scholarship. And the coach offered scholarships to like my 3 teammates before they said no, and it finally got to me. And I love the career that I kind of built out of speech and debate, right? And so like, it didn't hurt me. The money spent the same way. Sometimes that patience not only comes from what money the faculty know they have, but how it can function best in the department.
We look forward to seeing your emails and applications soon. I want to thank you guys
Bye,
again,
everyone.
and roll tide.
Thank you to our panelists.
Yes, thank you guys so much. We appreciate it.